What if I told you that, in the age of smartphones and cloud storage, the United States military was, until very recently, still using floppy disks to manage parts of its nuclear arsenal? It sounds like a joke from a spy movie, but it's true. We live in a world that moves at lightning speed, where new technology makes old gadgets obsolete overnight. But sometimes, for reasons of reliability, nostalgia, or simple stubbornness, the old tech refuses to die. Today, we're exploring the ghost technologies, the old products you thought had disappeared, but are secretly still running the world around us. These are the machines that just won't quit. They're not trendy, they're not cool, but in some of the most important jobs in the world, they are still trusted more than our modern gadgets. Take the pager, or the beeper as we lovingly called it. For most of us, it's a relic, a symbol of the 90s, replaced by the first text messages. But what if I told you that an estimated 90% of hospitals in the United States still rely on them? The reason is surprisingly simple: reliability. When every single second counts, doctors and nurses need a message that gets through no matter what. Cell networks can get congested or fail in an emergency. But the pager's separate radio network is a stubborn, dependable workhorse. It doesn't drop calls. It doesn't run out of data. It just beeps. The same is true for the screeching, whirring fax machine. You would have thought that email and digital signatures had kicked the fax machine to the curb. But in many industries, especially law and healthcare, the fax is still a trusted tool. Why? Because a faxed document with a real signature is often considered more legally binding and secure than an email attachment. It's a direct point-to-point connection, one that's harder to intercept. It's so reliable, in fact, that until just a few years ago, the UK's National Health Service was the world's largest buyer of fax machines. And then there's the humble floppy disk. These are no longer in production, but they are still the preferred method of storing and transferring data for some incredibly important systems. Many large, older industrial machines in the aviation and medical fields were built in an era of floppy disks, and it's simply too expensive or too risky to upgrade their core systems. A man named Tom Persky, who runs the website floppydisc.com, still sells thousands of them to these industries. It's a dying business, he knows, but the end is not quite in sight. It's a strange thought. Somewhere out there, a multi-million-dollar machine is still running on a piece of plastic that holds just 1.44 megabytes. These are the ghosts in the machine, the old workhorses we thought were retired, but are still quietly doing the most important jobs. Then there are the products that aren't still here, because they have to be, but because we want them to be. This is the revenge of analog, driven by nostalgia and a desire for something real. I can still feel the weight of my old Sony Walkman. For those of us who grew up in the 80s, that portable cassette player was the ultimate piece of tech. And now, it's making a comeback. An increased demand for analog technology has fueled a new desire for these iconic devices. It's not just about the music. It's about the ritual. The satisfying click of the cassette door. The hiss of the tape before the song starts. The meticulous art of making a mixtape. These are feelings you can't get from a streaming playlist. And with the Walkman, of course, cassette tapes themselves are booming in popularity again. Younger music artists are releasing their new albums on cassette, allowing a new generation to experience this technology. It's a wonderfully strange sight to see. The same is true for VHS tapes. Why would anyone choose to watch a fuzzy, grainy VHS tape when you can stream in crystal clear 4K? For a small but thriving subculture of VHS enthusiasts, it's all about the lo-fi aesthetic. They love the mechanical click of the tape going into the VCR, the outdated movie trailers at the beginning, and the slightly blurry picture that feels warm and familiar. It's a reminder that perfect isn't always better. And perhaps the most beautiful comeback story belongs to the Polaroid camera. After the original company went bankrupt, a group of devoted fans calling themselves the Impossible Project refused to say goodbye. They bought the last remaining Polaroid factory, and under the name Polaroid Originals, brought the magic of instant film back to life. They proved that, in an age of endless digital photos, there is still a powerful desire to hold a real, tangible memory in your hand, to watch it slowly appear as if summoned by magic. And then there's the typewriter. While most of us rely on laptops, for some nothing beats the look, the feel, and the sound of a good old-fashioned typewriter. There are no distractions, no notifications, no endless scrolling. It's just you, the paper, and the satisfying clack, clack, clack of the keys. I remember my grandfather had one in his study, and that sound always meant that serious, important work was being done. Today, fans have formed online networks to chat about and deal in typewriters, and sales of manual typewriters have been on the rise. These aren't just old products. Their experience is tangible connections to a past that a digital world can't quite replicate. Finally, there are the technologies that linger on not because of nostalgia or necessity, but for simpler reasons: habit, accessibility, and sometimes just because they still work. Take the rotary telephone. Invented in the 1890s, these heavy, indestructible phones became obsolete when push-button models were introduced. So why do people still use them? For some, especially elderly people, it's what they're used to, and they simply prefer the familiar, satisfying feel of the rotary dial. For others, it's a design choice, a retro statement piece in their home. There are likely less than 1% of Americans still using them, but they haven't disappeared completely. The same goes for dial-up internet. It's hard to believe, but in some rural parts of America, dial-up is still the only option for internet access. All you need is a traditional phone line. In 2019, it was estimated that nearly 2% of American internet users were still using dial-up, listening to that iconic screeching sound to get online. And what about renting movies? The last Blockbuster video store in Bend, Oregon is still alive and well, a beloved tourist destination. But surprisingly, DVD rental services are also still kicking. Netflix, before it became a streaming giant, started as a mail-order DVD rental service. And they still make hundreds of millions of dollars a year from it. Why? Because their DVD library is massive, with over 100 titles to choose from compared to just a few thousand online. For true movie lovers, that bigger selection is worth the wait. These are the stubborn holdouts, the quiet survivors that remind us that even in a world obsessed with the future, the past has a funny way of sticking around. From the buzz of a pager in a hospital, to the click of a typewriter in a quiet room, it's amazing to see how these old technologies refuse to fade away. They remind us that sometimes newer doesn't always mean better, and that there's a certain things that were built to last. What's an old piece of tech that you secretly wish would make a comeback? Let us know in the comments below. And if this journey into the world of ghost tech surprised you, please give it a like and subscribe for more.